Well, Shabbat Shalom and good morning once again. It is our pleasure this morning to welcome Rabbi Hillel Silverman, who is going to share with us some words of Torah. Hillel, good morning. Shabbat Shalom.
Good morning. Shabbat Shalom. It's a pleasure to be here. I love this synagogue. Our Sedra today from the book of Leviticus is Shemini. Interesting how each passage of the week receives its name. There are approximately 52 Sedras. Each one has its own name. And the name comes from usually the first few words of the Torah reading. Each one is different. Genesis, Bereshit, Noach, Lech Lecha, Vayera, Chayesara, Toldot, Exodus, Shemot, Va'era, Bo, Bishalach, Yitro, Bishpatim. The book of Numbers is Vayikra, Tzav, Shemini, Tazria, Metzora. The book of Numbers is the book of Deuteronomy is Zvarim, the Et Chanan Ekev Re'eh. And so every single reading has its own name. The name today is quite different. The name is Shemini. It's a number. It's the only Sedra of 52 weeks that has a name as a number. Usually the name is a noun or the name is a verb. Why Shemini? Because we have the priest Aaron and his sons who were ordained the last week or so, and now we have sacrifices of purification as they take their office. I thought that it would be interesting today to discuss numbers. There are many, many different numbers in our faith, and many of them are very significant. If you review numbers, you will review Jewish history, Jewish theology, Jewish values. The number 8, of course, is a very important number in our tradition. The 8 can signify Brit Milah, the 8th day when a son, is circumcised. 8 days of Hanukkah, 8 days of Shmini Atzeret. Shmini Atzeret is the 8th day of the festival of Sukkot. Incidentally, the modern Hebrew word Atzor is taken from Atzeret, and it means stop. It means break, Atzeret. There are other very, very important numbers in the Jewish faith. Shabbat, of course, the 7 days of the week. We have Shemitah. It's also 8, 7. Every 7 years, the land lies fallow. Every 7 years, you have sabbatical. You multiply 7 times 7, and you have Yovel. Yovel is the Jubilee year. The Jubilee is a very important time in the Jewish calendar. We have Jubilee in it. Thou shalt declare a Jubilee, declare a Jubilee to freedom for all mankind. Of course, this Jubilee has nothing to do with the freedom in the United States history. It has to do with the land lying fallow, with the land returning to its original owner. That's Yovel. Can you think of any other 7s in Jewish tradition? You have the Sephirah 7, which we're now, it's called the Omer. We count every day until 7 times 7, 49, and that becomes the festival of Shavuot. Some more 7s. When you put the phylactery upon your hand, the tefillin, you wrap it around your hand 7 times. Traditionally, at a Jewish wedding, the bride would encircle her husband 7 times. Another important number, number 4, and that, of course, is very important on the calendar of Passover. Think of 4s. You have 4 questions. You have 4 sons. You have 4 parts of the Seder. You wonder, why do we have a 5th cup that's empty at the Seder? The 4 cups of wine signify 4 verbs signifying freedom in the book of Exodus. The reason, halakhically or traditionally, is that the cup is empty because the rabbis were concerned about another word for freedom. Is it a valid word, or is it not a valid word? So they place it upon the table, an empty cup, following the Jewish tradition, Tishbi Yifaresh Kushot Avayot. Elijah, the prophet, will come someday and answer unanswered questions. And so the empty cup was placed on the table for generations. After many, many hundreds of years, our ancestors said, well, it's a cup of Elijah. And so it became the cup of Elijah as part of the Seder. Another 4, Imahot, the 4 matriarchs. Let's talk about another important number in Jewish tradition, the number 3. The number 3, Avot, the patriarchs, Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac and Jacob. 3, if you have 3 people at a meal, you have a mazon, and you recite a special prayer in the benching. There are 3 basic sounds for the sounding of the shofar: Tikiyah, Teruah, Shavarim. Another important word in the Jewish tradition, 10. There are 10 commandments. You would have 10 for a minyan, for a quorum. In the traditional days, it was 10 men. Now, of course, we very gratefully acknowledge women. I remember I was a rabbi at Sinai Temple many years ago when the Rabbinical Assembly decided to count women in the minyan also. At that time, our shamus was Nicholas Mermel. You may remember him, I'm sure you do, at the Valley Beth Shalom. He was your shamus, and a very traditional Jew. And when he heard that we were counting women for a minyan, he said, I'm not going to count women in a minyan. I said, oh, yes, you are. So you know what he said to me? I'll count them. You're 11, you're 12, you're 13. And so we have women in the minyan. Incidentally, why is a minyan 10? Halachically, it goes to an incident in the book of Numbers when 10 came with a report, an evil report, and the 2 meraglim had a good report. And the Hebrew word is Edah, 10. And so the minyan was 10. Another important number, 13, of course, bar mitzvah. And the attributes of God, there are 13. We have another important number in Jewish tradition. The flood was 10, it was 40 years during the time of Noah, the flood. Also, we have 40 days at Mount Sinai when Moses received the 10 Commandments from God. Another important number in the Jewish tradition, actually it's not a number, it's part of the Haggadah, when we play with numbers and we go through the alphabet of numbers. Echad mi yodea, who knows one? We sing at the Seder. I know one, there is one God. Who knows 2? There are 2 tablets of the law. Who knows 3? There are 3 patriarchs. Who knows 4? There are 4 matriarchs. Who knows 5? There are 5 books of the Chumash, of the Torah. Who knows 6? There are 6 portions of the Mishnah. And so we go on to the end, and who knows, 12, there are 12 tribes. The reason for this interesting song, which is sung at the end of the Seder, was to capture the attention of the children, who by now are tired and sleepy. It keeps them awake, because this was the original quiz show. Another important number is 18, Chai. Now, why is Chai 18? This was a very, very important enterprise of our ancestors called gematria. Each Hebrew letter has a numerical equivalent. Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3. This is not true of any other alphabet. The American alphabet, A is not 1, B is not 2, 3 is not 3. Gematria. Now, in Hebrew, Chai in gematria is life. Chai is 18. Chet is 10. Yud, Chet is 8, and Yud is 10. 18, gematria. For our ancestors, this was a very, very important enterprise. Gematria, to try to discover the mystical meaning behind numbers. And they would play with their first names. For example, my name in Hebrew is Hey, Lamed, Lamed. Hey is Vav, Lamed is Lamed, 30, another Lamed is 30. So Hillel is 37. And then we would try to find another Hebrew word, which would be the equivalent of Hillel. A very interesting passage in Pirkei Avot are what we do on certain ages. According to the rabbis, again, numbers, at the age of 5, you study Chumash. At the age of 10, you study Mishnah. 13 are the mitzvot. You have to fulfill the commandments. 15, you begin to study the Talmud. It's rather late. I assume it was done before the age of 15. 18 is chuppah. You have marriage. 20, you go out to make a living. And you wonder, what do you do for 2 years before the time you are married and then when you make a living? The answer was that the bridegroom usually stayed at the home of the bride and studied for another 2 years. 30 is koach, strength. 40 is bina, is understanding. 50 is Eitzah, you give good counsel. 60 is zikna, old age. 70 is seva, hoary age. And then you come to the next, which is 80, which is gevurah, which is special strength. 90, you're falling apart, you're bent over. And 100, it's as if you were passed away. I believe that numbers were quite important to our people through the generations. Our ancestors were very interested in numbers, in mathematics. Numbers had a mystical meaning. If you look at society, you discover that some of the great mathematicians were Jewish. They were involved with numbers. Einstein is a good example. You have, of course, the theory of relativity, which is formed in numbers. And so, my friends, we have discussed this morning the Parsha of Shmini, which has to do with 8, which has to do with numbers. We have looked at the traditions in Judaism of history, of values, of theology, in which numbers play an important part. And so, Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for the privilege of speaking about the Sedra at Temple Valley Beth Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you for sharing your Torah with us. We wish you a really good week, Shavua Tov, following the Shabbat, and hope that you're doing well with your family, close inside, isolated, of course, but taking very good care of yourself and your family. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
That's great. High five. High five. It's Chamsa. It's a number.
Oh, that's right. Huh?
High five. Chamsa.
I meant to mention Yitro, but I forgot.
That's okay. Yitro won't mind. That was great.
Did it come out?
Hi.
There you go.
Thank you.
Wasn't that cool?
Yes, let me just unrecord it. That's what I want to do.